From that earliest age, anytime I would see a movie, I would come home and I would, act out my version of it. Yes, I pretended to be Rocky Balboa, okay? It's ironic I was in The Karate Kid made by the same filmmaker. Or I wanted to be Michael Corleone, but a nice Michael Corleone, not a criminal. So I think it's always been in my bones to perform, to create in that way. Hi, this is Ralph Macchio, and this is the timeline of my career.
Okay, here's what you gotta do. Butch Academy is coming over here for the big dance. Hey, Pipehead, this is gonna take a lot of preparation, so pay attention.
This was 1979, and there was this film called Up the Academy that was casting. And I had done a few commercials, but a couple of Bubble Yum commercials at the time. And this was one of the first movie auditions. And I went in to New York City, and I met with the director, whose name was Robert Downey Sr. When I did my audition, just kept giving me more improvisational F-bombs to drop. I think he liked my sort of New York kind of young energy, and the fact that I was 17 at the time. I probably looked 12. And I guess the repetitive F-bombs coming out of my mouth just had him laughing louder and louder. So I pretty much got the audition saying a lot of F-bombs and being a tough New Yorker.
No shit.
It was a crazy time because, 70s cinema and those directors, and that time, there was a decent amount of drugs in the world and on the sets, and Up the Academy had its share of that in the behind the scenes moments, and I had no clue what was going on. I was as green as they come. I squeaked when I walked. That's how clean I was.
Sure are pretty, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
I'm really glad I came.
Oh, yeah, me too. Sorry the party's such a drag. It's just that the Bradfords know a lot of old people. I don't mind.
ABC was doing a talent search in New York, I guess, looking for young faces to plug into their established series. And I got lucky enough to be one that was chosen and plucked from New York and plugged into 8 is Enough at the time. Apparently they didn't think 8 was enough. But I fortunately got to do 21 episodes that season. It was the final season, so I always say I might have been 9 was too many. It was a great training ground for me to week in and week out be part of this ensemble and learn from all these experienced actors and sort of be out on my own in Los Angeles at the time. I mean, I got the parts before I kind of knew what I was doing. I mean, I think I got to give myself enough credit that I knew enough of what I was doing. So I dove deeper into the craft and studied acting after 8 is Enough and right before The Outsiders.
Things would go a lot better if the socials stayed on the south side of town, man.
Yeah, well, don't you worry about that, Johnny, because we're going to have it out with them sooner or later.
The Outsiders was a book I read in 7th grade when I was 12 years old. It was the first book I ever read without my parents or teacher telling me to read. I always had a great affinity for Johnny Cade, maybe because his description was close to how I looked, and maybe because he was the sort of runt of the group and I was kind of the smallest guy in my class. So when I heard they were making the film, now I was, I got to get in. I have to have the opportunity. So on the day that I did get the opportunity to audition for Francis Ford Coppola, who directed that film, who directed, The Godfather and Apocalypse, films that I've seen 25 to 40 times before then. This was all beyond the dream come true opportunity for me. And I remember Francis would mix and match actors all in one room together as he was looking for the chemistry and the ensemble. And anytime he picked me to read anything but Johnny, I was like, oh man, this is a disaster. I have to get that part. I was so specifically driven to get that part. And as luck would have it, or fate or destiny or whatever, I got to play the role, a dream come true role for me in a film that is, has a pretty good cast. A couple of guys. I run into these guys over the years, and we have, whether it's Matt Dillon, Rob Lowe, or Emilio, or C. Thomas Howell, when we see each other, there's a kindred spirit. There's, we all kind of started in the same place. So everyone wanted to be in that movie. It was, the cool movie to get. And we were all blessed to have that opportunity. And for me, it's like your first kiss. It's your first girlfriend. You never forget that. And that's The Outsiders for me. It holds a very special place.
Warning, critical contact for me. Finish him!
The Karate Kid came to me as an audition for John G. Avildsen, the director who had directed Rocky, among other great films. And I remember hearing the title saying, The Karate Kid, this is a terrible title. And I read the script, not that I wasn't going to pursue it. The Outsiders was just hitting at the time, so things were starting to build. As far as my recognition, it was the beginning of being taken seriously, but I went to John Avildsen's apartment on the Upper West Side, and the hallway was all full of other people who kind of looked remotely like me or in that age range, and waited my turn to go in, and I read with him one-on-one. And what's so interesting about that is that video you could see on YouTube of the first time I ever read for Daniel LaRusso. And it's interesting when I watched that, because that character was happening there even before I knew he was being developed. I was cast early on, and then it was all about who was going to play Mr. Miyagi. They were talking about Toshiro Mifune, the great Japanese actor who didn't speak any English, so that would have been a challenge. But all of a sudden, Arnold from Happy Days shows up on videotape, and Pat Morita. And the studio did not want him. The producer did not want him. I was like, Arnold from Happy Days? But John Avildsen was like, I read him, and he said, I've read you, and I'm putting you guys in a room together. And Pat Morita and I got in a room together and just grabbed the pages, started reading, and it was effortless. That magic that happened on the screen happened the first day we picked up the pages. He had Miyagi in his skin and his mind and his consciousness, and I, for whatever the reason, had the yin to that yang, the balance, literally the balance. Did I say it? Balance. That was sort of the beginning of the magic, the cinema magic that resonate to this day. And the filming of The Karate Kid was a lot of work. I mean, I was in every scene of the thing, and I didn't know how that's ever going to work. I mean, it's me, You have to reference that the filmmakers knew exactly what they were doing, but outside of that, there still needs to be some lightning in a bottle, some moons in proper alignment for something to stand the test of time, like The Karate Kid has in cinema and also in pop culture. Looking back, I weathered the storm. It was a good storm, and it still is. It still is. It's 36 years and climbing.
What do you expect me to do?
Focus.
Great, now what are you going to do?
Great.
So the point that we had an idea we were going to be making a Karate Kid Part 2 happened pretty early. We came out of seeing a sneak preview of The Karate Kid, and everybody out on the sidewalk and the parking lot was doing the crane stance. They all were doing their version, whether they were a 10-year-old kid or a 60-year-old man, or, it was, everybody was doing their version. And the producer, Jerry Weintraub, put his arm around my shoulder. He goes, we're going to be making a couple of these. That was before the movie ever came out in theaters. It's really amazing. It wasn't until it actually took off in the box office and it became a sleeper hit of that summer that we did get the option call that we're making a part 2. It was such a smart idea to take the Okinawan culture, Japanese American culture, and take Mr. Miyagi back to his homeland and then bring LaRusso there to experience that world. Pat Morita and I always describe our on-camera, off-camera as well, but our on-camera work as having a soulful magic to it. There was a great amount of mutual respect for each other. Our relationship wasn't necessarily mentor-student off-camera, because he taught me how to eat sushi, but I taught him how to make pasta, you know what I'm talking about? It was a friendship. He's certainly missed, but lucky for us, we have the legacy of that great performance, always and forever.
Ben, you graduated from law school 6 years ago. What have you been doing since?
Studying for the bar.
6 years?
Right before My Cousin Vinny, well, a bit before that, I was on Broadway with Robert De Niro in a play called Cuba and His Teddy Bear. And Joe Pesci, I had met him because he came to see the play with Scorsese and all those groups. It was just awesome for me as a young actor in New York on Broadway. And so then when My Cousin Vinny came up with Joe Pesci starring, and Goodfellas was out at the time, I think, or just ending its run. And I'd seen Raging Bull probably 70 times in the theater. Yes, I'm that guy. But Vinny came up and I was not, okay, they need a guy, an Italian guy, college age, Italian American from the East Coast to play Joe Pesci's cousin. The studio wasn't that into it. I think that at that point I had sort of fallen off I don't know if you want to call it an A-list, but I was not in the top 5 of what they were thinking. So it was a challenge to get that part. Being a part of My Cousin Vinny, that's another one that has stood the test of time. It really is kind of always there. People reference it. The 2 Utes, I'm one of the 2 Utes and I did not shoot the clerk. And it was funny on the page and even funnier on the screen. Great script. And I call it the late for dinner movie, because if it's on, you're going to be late for dinner because you just have to wait for that next scene. It's another one that I'm super proud to be a part of.
This is Bobby.
Hey, Bobby, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Bobby?
It's in retrospect that I had that sort of dry time where I wasn't working as much in front of the camera. I think it wasn't completely by design, but as it's worked out, it couldn't have worked out better. I had so much time as a dad, a husband, and a father. And so when I look at Ugly Betty, that was like after the intermission, if you will. And it sort of came up. I auditioned. It was, I think, only supposed to be a 2-episode arc with a possibility of developing into a love interest for the Hilda characters. Ana Ortiz played that role. And I auditioned. I got it. It was in New York, so it was easy. It sort of got me back into it. And I really appreciated that opportunity. And I remember sending a note to the showrunners of that show after I did my first episode saying that I believe there's room for this character to grow and I would love the opportunity. And so coming in, having a 2-episode arc turned into 11 episodes, so that was really cool of them and gave me the opportunity to play that sort of young romantic lead, or maybe not so young romantic lead.
Police! Don't move! What the fuck is this?
Police here!
Nobody told us. Jesus Christ. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
The Deuce, I knew that the pilot was shot and that they were doing the series, and I knew who the cast was. This was the early 70s, which I lived through. I lived through Times Square. I remember the smell, the look, the taste. New York in the 70s and Times Square in that time was a tough area. And it was a small role, a small, corrupt cop that, was kind of a dick and kind of a self-serving person who would take anyone to throw him under the bus to keep himself moving forward and up the ranks, and how he somehow never gets his comeuppance was a great opportunity, but I did not know that was the opportunity when I got the part. When I got the part, It was a one-off, maybe 2 to 3 episodes, not unlike Ugly Betty, but fortunately for me, David Simon and George Pelecanos and the creative team and HBO let this guy stick around for 17 of the 25 episodes. I love that show. I love being a part of it.
Hey, you still got those golden locks, eh? God, this is crazy. How you been?
Great, man. Thanks. I've been great.
That's great. Hey, Anoush, come here.
Cobra Kai came to me via the creators John, Josh, and Hayden. John and Hayden had written the Harold and Kumar franchise, and Josh written the Hot Tub Time Machine franchise. And I heard that these guys wanted to meet on a Karate Kid concept. They are the 3 biggest Karate Kid fans you will ever find. So that was number 1. Number 2 is they found an angle into the universe from a different perspective, and they wanted to dive into the gray areas of these characters. And that's what the big hook was for me. Karate Kid was very black and white, good over evil, Daniel-san good, Johnny Lawrence bad, Miyagi good, Kreese bad. Cobra Kai, each episode, your allegiance may change on who you're rooting for and why. Diving into those areas and then always paying homage to the film, the nostalgia of what the Karate Kid has become in pop culture and in cinema was super important, but no less important than making the story fresh for this generation. And that's what these guys convinced me we could do. And fortunately, Karate Kid is just one of those that was blessed back in 1984, and here we are. It's blessed all over again. It's fan service, but it's relevant storytelling, and that's pretty spectacular. I still enjoy learning because when you say you know it all, you're lying to yourself. But I enjoy the character and building a character from the foundation up. How he walks, how he talks, how he reacts, and the specialties of whether it's playing guitar in a film or martial arts. You get to experience a life through another person, a piece of you, and that's really quite incredible.